Hi there. Today we are answering the question, hard seat or padded seat, which one's better? What's the difference? Is there one that is maybe better for a specific discipline? And do you really get closer contact from a hard seat than from a padded seat? So we're going to answer all those questions. If you have any questions as we go along, you're welcome to write them in here. If you're watching us live, we'll try to get to them live. If you're watching us after the fact, we'll still try to come back and make sure that you get all of your questions answered. And if you have another topic or question for one of our weekly Facebook Lives, you can write it in the comments wherever you're finding us, or you can send it to our email address, which is hayescofellph@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you and to help you out with whatever your question is. Any of the different ways to work with us, whether it's training horses or lessons or our online coaching programs or our online tack shop, they're all available on our website, hayescofellperformancehorses.com. And we're happy to talk with you about any of those services or any of the products that are on our shop. So the question for this week again was the difference between a hard seat and a padded seat. And do you want to start with what the difference is between a hard seat and a padded seat, and show everybody? We have a couple different saddles here to show you, so we can actually show you the difference.
So I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, a hard seat, we don't have no padding in here. One piece of leather does the entire seat jockey. This is definitely a fad for the cow horses, the cutters, the reiners. Been real popular in the last 10 or so years. You either love them or you hate them. I'm not going to deny that. I really like them. If they're a good hard seat, they're really well. There's no forgiveness as far as padding goes, so they're either really good or they're really not good. So the hard seats, that's all it means, is just smooth leather straight across there. Single padded is when they put the seat in, there's a small little bit of foam underneath this leather. Usually it's less than about 1/4 of an inch. Every saddle maker is different. A little bit of foam under there, and then the seat's put on top, and that's what the single padded is. It's all pretty self-explanatory. Double padded is a little over 1/2 inch, so a lot more foam put in here for cushion. The leather here will be just a little hair bit looser on all of them to accommodate the movement that's going to be in there. So a lot of times you'll kind of see like little wrinkles in through here. But the main thing is that it's just a thicker foam in through the seat and all up through here. Same build on them. They just stitch leather over top, and there's your double padded there.
I think the main difference, if you look at the saddle, like this is kind of a good angle right here to look kind of down back at the saddle this way. If you look down here, you can see that there's no padding here. If you look here, you can see that there is a little bit of padding in here. And in this one, which is a Bob's, the single padded saddles, they call it a foam, but it's actually the single padding is actually a really, really dense foam. It's almost more like a rubber, and it does not break down over time. So you still get that. This saddle is a 1996, and you still get some of that give from that foam. But you can see there how much of the space of the seat it takes up. And then when you look at this one, which is the double padded, again, you have that really dense layer that's almost more like a rubber, and then you have a fluffier foam over the top. That fluffier foam takes up a little bit more space here in the saddle, so it actually takes up a 1/2 inch of space out of the seat size. So if you're going with a double padded seat, if you're ordering a custom saddle, you actually order it a little bit bigger to accommodate for that cushion. But that softer foam will break down a little bit over time. So in the beginning, it's quite puffy. Like this one's almost brand new. In the beginning, it's quite puffy. It will break down just a little bit so that it's not quite as thick. Okay, so one of the other questions that we had was, does a hard seat offer closer contact? Is it, if I'm trying to get down closer to my horse's back, is a hard seat actually going to be down closer to the horse's back? And I know a lot of people say that they don't like too much padding, or they don't like especially a double pad because it's too much. It feels like, I've had people describe it feeling like a diaper. Do you want to touch on that, if you actually get closer contact?
I mean, you do to a small degree, because there's a layer of leather with that small layer of foam under there. And I mean, not even to the point of a quarter of an inch. It's so minimal, it's unreal. I think the amount that you do, I personally don't think is one where that's the right way to put it. You know, as to how much more down you are in there. You are a quarter of an inch, or a little over a quarter of an inch on the doubles compared to these. So it is closer, but not by a whole lot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, you do. You have this much less in between you and the horse, technically. I think for me, the biggest difference like, I like all three. I'm quite comfortable riding in all three. And, you know, I mean, I want to say, like, not to be a saddle snob, but I kind of am a saddle snob at this point. The double padded saddles that are made by Bob's don't feel like, it doesn't feel like too much. I have people ask me that a lot. Well, if I go with double padding, is it going to feel like too much? The padding that's used in the way that the saddles are built, with the Bob saddles, the double padding doesn't feel like a diaper. It doesn't feel like it's lifting you way up off the horse's back. It's actually quite comfortable. And the pro to the double padding versus a single padding is, if you are a rider who experiences any aches and pains in the saddle, which, you know, a lot of us are, some of us more than others, if you have an abrupt stop, if you're kind of getting jolted around in the saddle a little bit, and you have a little bit of extra give with the padding that makes you relax more, and then, you know, it allows you to be a little bit more flexible with the hips, you being more relaxed and not anticipating that hard hit, and being able to relax your body and sit down, is actually going to make a double padded seat way more comfortable for you than the benefit of being that teeny tiny little bit closer to the horse's back. That's my opinion, you know, based on my experience. But like I said, I ride in all three and find all three more comfortable. If I find all three comfortable, if I was in a position where I was only going to have one saddle, I probably would do the double padded. What would you do if you were only going to have one?
I think I couldn't live my life.
That's not the question.
For me, if I'm riding all day and I'm like just loping a lot all day, I prefer the hard seats because you move around a little bit more in them. I agree with, like, some saddle companies will use double padding to hide flaws in their groundwork and in their trees, and that just shows up eventually no matter what. The double padding I definitely like to show in and ride in, and especially, I'm not as young as I once was. It definitely is comfortable, but a good hard seat I will take all day long, more so than the padded. The other thing I think, and aside from the hard seat, maybe isn't the topic, but is the type of leather in the single or the double padded. I don't want this leather to be, I know everybody says they want it to grip them and stick their butt in there. I don't. I want to float around just a little bit and have some movement, especially like the rough outs, you know, which are real popular in the seats.
Which we don't have one here.
Yeah, never thought to grab one of those.
No.
Some people love them. Great for you. I don't like rough out where I'm sitting, that one there is one that we use, and it was rough out, but it's old and
Not the seat. The seat was smooth, but this was rough
Around
there.
here.
Yeah.
But in here and whatnot, if you ride all day in a rough out, it's a little hard on the behind, and you know, it's just rougher when you got the smooth seats and not rough out on the hard seats. But you just move a little bit, and then to me, it's more comfortable. But that's personal preference. I know a lot of people, especially the pleasure horses and the show horse people in those disciplines, have definitely, it's more of a, they want sticky, they want
They want
to be held in.
one place. Yeah.
as where the cow horses and you know, the working horses, you want to just move just that little bit and not be so gripped in. So for me, that's the biggest one, is that it's funny, I actually prefer a double or a hard over a single. But that's one of my work saddles. I ride in lots of them, so I just grab whatever, but my wife won't let me ride in that
The
one.
number one thing is the saddle, the actual saddle, how it's built and how comfortable it is, and the grounding tree and the seat and all that stuff. And then, you know, whether it's double padded, single padded, or hard seat, I don't think it's quite as important.
Mm-hmm.
You know. But if we're looking at in this case, we're looking at 3 saddles that are very well made, and we're trying to just look at the seat specifically. So, the other question that we had was, is one recommended for each discipline, or is one recommended more for one discipline? And the question was actually, would you use one of them, like what one do I use for the reining? But I think we should touch a little bit on the reining, the ranch riding, the cow horse, maybe the pleasure. If anybody else has something that they would like for us to touch on, we can touch on that. But what do you think? Is there one of them that is more popular than another for the cow horse? Let's start with the cow horse.
I feel like the cow horses have trended over into the what's called the punchy look, the cowboy look with the hard seats more. Lots of guys still build them with padding, but it's definitely been a fad with the hard seats, a little flatter through here. You know, they raise up horns, a few different things, but definitely the hard seats in there, and they let them move around a little bit in those seats. You know, when you're stopping on a cow a little harder. It seems silly to say, everybody says they want to be gripped down into it, but it's actually more comfortable if you just move just a hair and you ride often that way.
Okay, the reining, do you see one that's more popular than the other for the reiners?
I would say the double padded is still more popular for the reiners. The hard seats, a lot of the trainers are riding in them, just because it's that all day thing. But definitely there's still more in the padded seats with the trainers, or with the general population of the reiners. You know, that double padding, instead of being held on by rough out, you know, you sit better right down into there. When that horse stops and spins, I think it has a better feel to it. For most people, especially when they're learning how to rein and learning how to stop horses and turn horses, definitely I think the double padded is more popular in there. And then, you know, as far as the pleasure horse people go, definitely the more padded seats have always been more popular. They kind of push on those backs just a little differently when they're loping and want to have a little more grab that way.
And what about the ranch riding?
I would say the ranch riding, I'd say it's almost 50-50 split what I see at the shows. Mm-hmm. We see a lot with the hard seats and whatnot in there, but we see so many people coming from the pleasure horse world where, you know, they're comfortable in that seat, so they don't want to give that up, which is, you know, completely fine. So I would say 50-50. And then most of the trail riders, I feel like, are into the single padded seats. That's kind of where I see them as they're around the countryside, for all that I see trail riders.
All right, So, I think that answers all of the questions. What's the difference between the hard seat versus the padded seat? You know, we went over that. You can see where the seats are actually stitched on top. And then it's just the amount of padding between the single pad and the double pad. Again, in the bob saddles, it's two different types of padding in there. We talked a little bit about whether you get closer contact from a hard seat or a padded seat. And then we talked a little bit about which one would be suitable for each discipline. And I don't think that anybody should feel like they have to have one or the other. There's definitely no hard and fast rule about any of those. You almost never see a hard seat in pleasure.
Not very often. Yeah,
That doesn't mean that you couldn't show in one if you had one, you know.
I've seen a few like true player saddles that had hard seats, and they, you know, had a neat look to them. They're not maybe the standard.
Yeah.
I think once you get into those too, there's so many different things you do with the seats, you know, as far as rises and all that stuff, that become more important. You know, one of the reasons I always say to everybody, you know, ordering these things online is tricky. You really have to know what seat you like, how you like them built. You know, we cheat a little bit. We can order them online because I'll ride in a lot of different styles, and they, you know, for different horses, and I don't care. But you're better to stick your butt in one and see which ones you like the best. A lot of people, when they ride the hard seats, I find they either walk in and they love them, or they're not sold on them. And the people that like them really like them.
Really like them and don't want to ride anything else. I've also found though, like, you know, since we started selling these a few years ago, that people who are used to a padded seat, they'll be like, oh, why would you do that? Why would you even go to a hard seat? And then they'll sit in it and they'll be surprised by actually how comfortable it is. And I think it just goes back to, you know, a well-made saddle with, you know, a good tree in it and a good seat is comfortable, whether it's a hard seat or a padded seat. And even, you know, people who don't ride very often, like I've had people who, you know, take lessons, you know, a little bit here and there, and that's all the riding they do, and they find that, you know, quite comfortable. Surprised me. I would have
Good
thought.
hard seats are really good. You get a cheap
Yeah.
brand where they didn't do a good job, and that's one of the benefits. When it's a cheaper saddle, the more padding can hide a lot of faults.
Yeah.
I've seen a few cheap brands with hard seats and sat on them and think, oh my gosh. That's the only thing, is they're unforgiving. If they don't fit you, they do not fit you. And when ordering them, like you said earlier, know that in a hard seat, you're going to be a half an inch smaller than a double padded seat. You know, you're not riding in a 16-inch saddle on all three styles of saddle, that's for sure. And that gets into even up here and all the different groundworks, and there's a lot to it. But I like the hard seats. I like them my favorite, but when I really go stopping horses and stuff, I actually prefer a double.
Okay, I think we answered all of your questions there. Thanks for being with us. And if you have more questions about saddles or horses or riding or showing or anything, you can leave them for us here in the comments. If you want to reach out to us about working with us further, you can check us out on our website or just